Hello and welcome to Good Morning UK. Have your say. A Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. Thank you for all the viewers and the comments coming in already on this auspicious day, for it was 5 years ago today, on Thursday the 23rd of June 2016, that the United Kingdom went to the polls and voted, to the surprise and shock of the political establishment, to leave the European Union. And the world has never been the same since. So we're going to be asking today, has Brexit delivered yet? Has Brexit delivered yet? Because for the first few years, nothing was happening except politicians arguing with each other. Good morning on this beautiful morning on the 5th anniversary of our hard-fought victory to leave the European Union. Andrew says Brexit definitely made the left more militant and disgusting. Well, a lot of people were upset with Brexit, of course, because the vote was very close. And people who were most upset, of course, was the political establishment, who did not imagine that was going to happen. And indeed, it was a shock to a lot of people. We all knew it would be close, but to actually leave was... It was a revolution, essentially, and I don't think that's maybe properly understood, because the entire British political establishment from top to bottom, and all the devolved establishments as well, were all pro-EU, and for that to be overthrown was just such a shock to the system that they still have not recovered. And of course, many people in that political establishment, the media establishment and the political establishment, have never forgiven the British people for it. To this day, they won't forgive those who voted leave. What do you make of the Andy Burnham issue? We're going to be talking about that. We've got a lot to say about the so-called travel ban, which is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. One thing that needs to be just knocked on the head, though, is that Scottish nationalists will always say about Brexit. To this day, they say, oh, Scotland was told that it was only by voting to stay in the UK that we could stay in the EU. And Scottish nationalists pretend that they were misled by the political establishment, as if to suggest that so many people voted to stay in the UK because they wanted to stay in the EU. It's not correct. The Scottish nationalists all spoke very clearly that the danger to Scotland for those who wanted to stay in the EU was in fact staying in the United Kingdom. Alex Salmond was very clear. He said, Salmond warns a Brexit vote is the biggest threat to Scotland's EU membership. Now, this was an article that appeared back in May 2014. So this is a way back even before the Scottish referendum in September 2014. And Alex Salmond was very clear that if you vote to stay in the UK, then what's likely to happen is that there will be a referendum on EU membership, and it is very possible that Britain would vote to leave. So Alex Salmond, the leader of the SNP, the leader of the so-called Yes campaign, the leader of Scottish independence, was very clear that if you voted to stay in the UK, then that would threaten Scotland's EU membership. So the Scottish nationalists made it very clear what would happen if you voted to stay in the UK. They made it very clear that it was likely there would be a referendum on EU membership, and it was possible that the Leavers would win and that Scotland would leave the EU with the rest of the United Kingdom. That was made clear by these guys, so we have to knock it on the head, the idea that they were somehow misled. And furthermore, they even got the British Civil Service to produce this huge book called Fraudulent Costs. Your Guide to an Independent Scotland. Now, it was actually called Scotland's Future, but Scotland's Future is an exact anagram of fraudulent costs. So in our copy of Scotland's Future here, we always just put this cover over it and call it Fraudulent Costs. Your Guide to an Independent Scotland. Fraudulent Costs. And in Fraudulent Costs, here at paragraph 266, it says, what impact will the Conservative Party proposal to have a UK referendum on EU membership have? It is the view of the current Scottish Government that the only real risk to Scotland's membership of the EU is the referendum proposed by the Prime Minister. However, if we do not become independent, we risk being taken out of the EU against our will. So it was all very clearly laid out by the Scottish National Party, courtesy of the British Civil Service, when they produced this book called Fraudulent Costs. And believe me, this was produced by the British Civil Service in order to help Alex Salmond break up the country. And that issue has still to be addressed, the use of the British Civil Service in undermining the actual United Kingdom itself. We've written extensively on that. They shouldn't be allowed to be used to produce door stoppers like that. Door stoppers that was free if you wanted it as well. You could just send away and get a copy. Oh, the amount of money that went into that. And another thing, of course, was the actual... We wrote an article about it. Well, we were interviewed at the time by a major European newspaper, and we put up an article there which will stick up on the site, which basically summarised all the arguments. But here in Scotland, the entire political establishment and the entire media was for staying in the EU. But still, even though we had no political leadership, the Leavers had no political leadership, we still got over 1 million votes to leave the EU, which is astonishing. Astonishing. There was no politicians speaking for us apart from fringe politicians who didn't have a lot of access to the mainstream media. Apart from them, there were no Holyrood politicians of any stature. And of the 129 of them, there were only 5 that we know of who actually supported Leave. And there were no newspapers up here who supported Leave, no Scottish-based newspapers who supported Leave. And the media, the mainstream media was biased, of course, as well. So there was nobody speaking for the Leavers, yet over 1 million people in Scotland voted to Leave, which is incredible. And when you add that to the Northern Ireland Leave vote, then you actually get the winning margin for the UK overall, because it was pretty close. There was 1,269,501 UK-wide was the majority. And the Scottish and Northern Irish Leave votes added together came to just over that. So you could just as equally say that it was the Scottish and Northern Irish Leavers who helped the United Kingdom to leave the EU. And that's what happens in a United Kingdom. The vote goes into one big pot and it's all counted. And it's not counted as a Scottish vote, really, or a Northern Irish or an English or Welsh. It's counted as a British vote. And Britain voted to leave. And we have to now make the best of it. And the question is, are we making the best of it after 5 years? What has Brexit delivered yet? If you can think up what Brexit has delivered, just fire it into the comments. Well, there's various trade deals that are going on at the moment. Trade deals can sometimes be a double-edged sword because some sectors of your industry can benefit while others might be a little bit disadvantaged. But I don't know exactly how these trade deals are going to play out in the past. But at least Britain's now free to make these trade deals without having to run everything through the EU, and indeed get the EU to do the actual negotiations. So in that sense, the world is our oyster, and we've always argued that we need to build up the economies and give preferential treatment to an extent to the economies that we do have a historical connection with, that used to be part of what was called the British Commonwealth and now is called the Commonwealth. So there's a huge potential there when we are free, basically, to trade with every single country in the world if we so choose. So the potential for Brexit is essentially unlimited. It's unlimited, and it just requires the political leadership to see the potential and to make the most of it. And that is surely coming, because it's now a done deal, and we're not ever going to go back into the EU, regardless of what Nicola Sturgeon might imagine. Now, talking of Nicola Sturgeon, the absolute nonsense of her travel ban to Manchester and to Salford as well. And you know what's interesting about this? It's the first time in a long time where some prominent politician has actually stood up and disagreed with Nicola Sturgeon and told her that she's wrong. And of course I'm talking about Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor, who quite rightly said that the SNP should pay up for the travel ban if they have prejudiced people in Manchester who were maybe booking holidays in Scotland, or who are losing business because tourists from Scotland are no longer going to Manchester. Then Sturgeon should compensate these Manchester firms. He said SNP should pay up for the travel ban. That's the front of the Metro a couple of days ago, and he's absolutely quite right. But what gets avoided in this is, what legal right has Sturgeon to do this? Now, yesterday we spent the whole day examining the law on this matter. Now, I should just say before I go into this, we have a guest coming up at 11 o'clock, and just before 11 o'clock we'll have our competition. So really looking forward to our guest this morning, who is Catherine Rainey, a great AFFG activist. So looking forward to talking to her. However, the question is, under what law is Madame Sturgeon setting up these travel bans? Now, everything to do with the corona situation was devolved in an act called the Coronavirus Act 2020 by the British Parliament. And what it said was that the devolved institutions in Holyrood, Cardiff and Stormont could make up their own laws within specifically laid down areas, okay? Within areas that were within their devolved competency, within areas such as health and things like that. Now, it made... So the Scottish National Party cannot make law outside of that. They can't just make up law as they go along. It has to be justified by the powers that were given to them by the Coronavirus Act 2020. Now, there is nothing in the Coronavirus Act 2020 that says that the devolved institutions can set up travel bans. And when you think about it, there should be nothing there anyway, because travel within the United Kingdom is surely the responsibility of the British government. I'm not talking about transport, I'm not talking about road building in Scotland or whatever. These things can be devolved. I'm talking about the travel of a human being from north to south, from east to west in our British Isles. That, if we have a United Kingdom, that is the responsibility of the British Parliament to decide. However, the SNP always push the boundaries, and they push the boundaries and they wait for the response. They wait to see what will the British government do, and if the British government does nothing, then they tick it up as something else we can get away with. And that's exactly what's happening here with the travel ban. Now, there's a Scottish statutory instrument. We'll put up the article actually just now on our website, just so it's up there and people can see it. But there's a Scottish statutory instrument, which is a fancy name for a law which can be created by the Scottish Parliament without it having to go through any kind of debate in the chamber. And in the section of this here, it's called the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions and Requirements Local Levels Scotland Amendment Number 3 Regulations 2020. And Schedule 7A says, very grandly, a person who lives in Scotland must not leave Scotland for the purpose of entering or remaining in a place within the common travel area mentioned in paragraph 4. And then it's got another section here, restrictions on entering Scotland. A person who lives in a place within the common travel area mentioned in paragraph 4 must not enter or remain in Scotland. Now, the common travel area is a phrase established by the British Parliament which refers to all of the United Kingdom, the Channel Islands, the Isle of Man, and the Republic of Ireland as well. And so it seems that the SNP has taken it upon itself to decide who can move in and out of the common travel area. And they will list in paragraph 4 those areas within that common travel area that they don't want you travelling to or coming out of into Scotland. And of course they've added the area of Manchester City Council and Salford City Council in their arrogance, because that has no legal standing. For a law to have legal standing, it must be based on something which gives it that legal authority. That law about restricting travel is not based on any power which the SNP or the Scottish administration or Holyrood has. It does not have the legal power to stop people travelling in and out of Scotland. Imagine they're telling people in Manchester, the Scottish Parliament, the SNP is telling people in Manchester, you can't come to Scotland. That is an absolute outrage. They're acting as if Scotland is already independent, and they're acting as if the SNP already has the power to determine who can move in and out of Scotland. They're acting as if the Scottish Parliament already determines the border between Scotland and England and decides who gets in or out. That's way beyond their powers. Now the question is, why is the British government keeping quiet about this? You know, we need a statement from the top. We need a statement from Boris to say, you do not have the power to do this. Now, the British government may be reluctant to do that because they know that the SNP and the lying media will make a big thing of that, and Sturgeon will go, I'll see you in court then about it. And it might be that the government don't want this to be tested in court, even though it's obvious, and even though it's an obvious step too far. Maybe they're nervous about the optics that would transpire from that. Maybe they're nervous about Sturgeon and her lying media saying things like, oh, so you want people to travel into Scotland who are diseased. You want people to go from Scotland to Manchester and catch COVID. You know, maybe they're just uncomfortable about how that would play out. So there may be political reasons that they're just letting the SNP do this. But if they believe in the United Kingdom, they have to come out and say, that's not acceptable and that's way outside of your power. There is no law which enables you to do that. So they must say that. And now is the time, because they have a prominent public political figure speaking out against her. So, in the shape of Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor. And so now's the time, when it's a hot issue, to just lay that on the table and say, that's not legal. That has no legal standing. And you can't do that. Because believe me, if you let them get away with this, they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing and setting precedents all the time, until before you know it, there is a hard border between Scotland and England, because that's the SNP agenda. Now, we have got a great guest coming up in a few minutes, in the shape of Catherine Rainey, who is a wonderful AFFG activist. Before then, I'm going to give you the competition, and the competition will be based upon this day in British history, which I'll just speak about at the moment. Now, on this day in British history, obviously, we had the Leave referendum on the 23rd of June 2016. However, going a little bit back further in history, we had the death of another one of Scotland's great sons, a great British patriot and architect, a man called James Craig, who passed away on this day, on the 23rd of June in 1795. And it is he who is responsible for the grandeur of the Edinburgh New Town. That's the area which sits below Princes Street. Not the area that sits up on the hill, that's the old town, but the new town, a beautiful part of the city. And he had won a competition to design the new area of housing. And get this, right, he won it by designing the new town streets in the shape of a Union Jack. Okay? Now, unfortunately, that proved too difficult to actually build. So he changed it into what it is today, which is the grid pattern, a simple grid pattern. But the new town was originally going to be done in the shape of a Union Jack. And on our Facebook page later today, we'll put up the design there that we found on the internet. Remarkable fellow. And nevertheless, his patriotism, his British patriotism, continued with the names of the streets. Queen Street and George Street and Princes Street were named in honour of the family of George III. And Cumberland Street was named after the Duke of Cumberland. Hanover Street after the House of Hanover, from which George was descended. Frederick Street after George III's father. And of course, right there next to Princes Street, we've got Rose Street and Thistle Street, the English and Scottish emblems. And Charlotte Square, which is at the opposite end of George Street from St Andrew Square, was named after Queen Charlotte, who was the Queen Consort of George III. So the Craigs were a patriotically British family, and it was James's uncle was James Thompson, who wrote Rule Britannia. Okay, so great Scottish and British patriots, the Craigs, and he's buried with his family in Greyfriars Kirkyard. So that was James Craig, who passed away on this day, 23rd of June in 1795. And other people passed away today as well. John Laurie, who was Private Frazer in Dad's Army. He was born in Dumfries and he passed away on this day in 1980. And another man was the D-Day weather mastermind, the Scotsman who convinced Eisenhower to change the date of D-Day from the 5th of June to the 6th of June because the weather would be better. And his name was Sir James Stagg from Dalkeith, and he's buried in Dalkeith Cemetery. A great meteorologist, military meteorologist. So some great Scotsmen passed away on this day today. Now we've got Catherine coming in, and when I bring in Catherine, please do welcome her to the show. Hello, Catherine.
Hi everyone.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed today. We've known about you for a few months now. Yeah. And you've been a great presence on the show with your comments. And we met you when you came to join us on the 1st of May when we had our Great British Union Day event in George Square. And you're from the Argyll area.
Yeah.
And so you made quite a big journey to see us. Now, what I'd like to do is just take you through your journey into standing up for the union. And how did you first hear about A Force for Good?
It was actually by accident. So I moved to Scotland 16 years ago, and I found it really welcoming then, and didn't really see any sort of division or anything like that. It was only probably the last, I'd say, well, since the referendum in 2014, that things started to change a little bit. Me being English, my grandparents are Scottish, and I'd come up here to be with them and my mum and my sister. And so, I got my own business and, worked really hard and really enjoyed living in Scotland. And then after the referendum, things started to get a little bit different, like the separation of the English and the Scottish. And I've got plenty of witnesses that couldn't believe how I was treated when I, went out. And, as soon as I talked to my accent, where are you from? And, and then it was, so that was kind of difficult to sort of, because I've never experienced that before. It's kind of racism, isn't it? And you don't understand how it feels until you have been in that position. So I was always working. I worked really hard. I had my own business as a beauty therapist, and I also worked in a care home as well, which I loved doing. So I was working day and night. So I was never a Facebook person at all. And then when the pandemic hit, and I found that I was at home a lot more because my business had shut down straight away. They took the buses off for me to get to my care home. So my lovely Scottish neighbours next door, they lent me their car for 6 months so I could work 2 or 3 nights a week, night shift. But then after about 6 months and things weren't, getting any better with COVID and lockdowns, I couldn't keep using the neighbour's car. So I had to give up that job as well. So all of a sudden I was without any work at all, which was really difficult. I live in quite a rural area called Seal by Oban, a half an hour drive from Oban. And I was just like, I used to work day and night basically, and I was just like doing nothing. So I saw an advert on Facebook. I got into Facebook, then I became one of these phone addicts where I was posting on Facebook a lot, just because it was something to do. And I came across something about the union, Can Anyone Help? And it was something to do with stopping Sturgeon. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can help do that because I've seen what happens. And so I applied to something like that, and then I found you one day by accident. It was I just saw the great logo that you have, which is really eye catching, and says a lot, with the heart and the union flag. So I got onto you, and then that was it. I just felt so much better because I knew there was like-minded people out there. You know, I think where I live was quite SNP. I think it's changed a bit now, actually, but there was no yes banners where there usually was in Seal this time. Anyway, I just followed you then. It was like, oh yes, I found people that, you know, understand everything. And then I really got into it because I thought, well, you know, you've put your life out, you know, you've dedicated your life to doing this. And I thought, well, I'm not doing anything else either. So I started to do that as well. So, of course, when you get into this, you do realise that you upset less than half of the Scottish population. But, you know, it's still a big majority of people that you have to take on. And during the election, everything gets a bit more heated, doesn't it? And people start saying things a bit more, you know, not very nice. And so you had to be able to cope with that as well. And that showed me as well, because I never really saw unionists saying awful things to other people who are SNP, but I did get a lot of SNP trolls to me. I'd always decided that I wasn't going to swear on the computer and I wasn't going to call names on the computer. And probably maybe once, I think I called somebody a tool. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I was tired. I was doing it from 8:00 when I woke up, or 7:00 when I woke up, till whatever time I crashed out at night. And so I tried to keep it nice, you know, and friendly. But I suppose with elections, everybody's just going for it, aren't they? We were all shattered after the election.
Calling somebody a tool is the least.
I don't like doing that anyway.
Quite frankly, nice. There certainly does appear to be a large selection of garden implements, put it that way, on the Scottish nationalist boards. But they, as you said, they will always trawl, attack the unionists. Unionists are much more kind of just normal, and we don't necessarily have that kind of aggressive instinct that, and everybody says this on the Facebook pages. Everybody says this. They'll say, you know, that they posted some mild comment and suddenly all their so-called Facebook friends, the Scottish nationalists, all descend like in an absolute like a wasp's nest on them, you know, like
it's quite a lot to take as well.
Of course it is,
and
most normal
for everybody.
Most normal people don't
when
want
mental
to be
health isn't the best at the moment with COVID and lockdowns, and I just find that everybody's just getting at everybody else. You know, it's like you can't say or do anything without people trying to, you know, slam you down and stop you having an opinion, and you know. So yeah, that was enough to get me fired up, and Good. I'm sort of like with you guys now, a force for good. That's me, you know, trying to help the best I can.
Good. Well, we do appreciate the help that you gave, and it was great to see you to come down all this way to our event in Glasgow. Yeah. I mean, what would you say to people who are thinking about maybe getting involved in the sense of joining us outside?
I'd say definitely go for it. I am going to talk to you, you know, maybe some of the time about doing something as well where we just post your details on Facebook, like, you know, just quite a lot to get it more out there, because I would never have known you guys existed, and you did for a long time while I was in Scotland, you know. So it's more about getting you know, a force for good out there, because, you know, there's however many, over half of the population that need to feel like, you know, they're part of Britain and part of a group like this, really.
Oh, we hear the same thing from lots of people when they find us. It's like, thank goodness there's somebody out there, you know. And we've been doing this since March 2012. And, you know, we are, even though we say ourselves, we're pretty good at it now. We know we've been through the fires. What's the phrase? You've been through the forge or whatever, and you've come out stronger at the end of it. And as far as things like public events are concerned, we from the very beginning we realised that we would have to cooperate with the authorities and to do so very closely, and that it was in everybody's best interest that we did. So we've got good relationships with the authorities that we need to have relationships with. We have somebody who's dedicated simply to dealing with the police on any matter when we are outside, and we know what to say and what to do. And you mentioned our emblem. We've got a really good video and graphic designers who are able to really produce really, really good optics for us. And in that regard, I should just give a quick mention to our TikTok page, which started 2 weeks ago. We've now got we've now got 500 followers as of this morning. And so that's creating more visuals to get out to other people. So you mentioned there about getting more out on Facebook. That's possible. We need people to share our content. So if you're watching this video, folks, please do just share it into your friends'
well, that's
pages.
it. And another thing is really important is to, join your Thin Red Line as well. And, I don't know if you can see my badge there. Can you see?
Oh, fantastic.
And get one of these and support you like that as well. We need to do this, don't we? We need to to bring everyone together and get this out. I mean, it's a very critical time, isn't it, at the minute with Europe and Sturgeon, and it's just we need to move on moving forward.
That's right, and we need this voice. Sandra there is saying that, yes, I share the group constantly on other unionist groups. Nice. Well, thanks very much for doing that. Thanks very much for doing that, Sandra. And we'll put up the wee link there to that badge, which is one of our best sellers.
Yeah, I love it. And everybody comments on it as well, and they like it. Yeah. And I think they like the fact that they don't see it much, and
exactly.
Great.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that phrase, "a force for good," the British government now uses it all the time.
Yeah.
And it never did it until we started to popularise it.
Yeah. Oh, I've messaged Boris myself and said, I want you to support a force for good. Get on it.
Good.
Actually, I've got in touch with Robbie Williams, who he just kept coming up. I don't know why on my computer, and he said, "What country are you? Tell me what country you're from." So I put Scotland, and I think you might be able to help. And it was quite cheeky, but why not? Let's get this going. Get everybody talking about it. We are Britain, and we don't want some group of people taking that away from us. It's not the majority of what people want. It's a little bit weird, I think as well we could get a force for good out in England as well. That would be amazing, because we want Scotland to stay together. We love Scottish people. But I will say one thing as well, I didn't move to Scotland until I was 34, and so I'd lived 34 years in England, and even with my Scottish grandparents and aunties and uncles and so on, I still didn't visit Scotland until I was 34, and English people do not have a clue what's going on in Scotland. They really don't. They haven't got a clue what's going on and what you guys are going through. That's the thing. You don't understand till probably you live in a country what is actually happening. But I think we need to tell the rest of Britain the total corruption and division in Scotland. That's my views.
Yes. You're absolutely right there about
Thanks,
lots
Richard.
of people. Good comment. Yeah. Tommy says, "Hear, Catherine."
Yeah, thank you.
We do need to get it out, because so many people, if they only listen to the BBC, then they'll think that Sturgeon speaks for all of Scotland, when of course she only speaks for the SNP and those who support her. And she's also very careful about who she will even lend support to. There's I don't want to politicise the issue or anything like that, but the World's Strongest Man competition was out on at the weekend, and it was won by a Scotsman.
I saw that, yeah.
Tom Stoltman, but she hasn't tweeted her congratulations. You would think she would be proud that the strongest man in the world is from Scotland. That's right up her street. But she's not going to, because it's got
he was wearing a union jack.
Yes.
A union flag, shall we say. Yes.
Yes, and
exactly.
It's clear where his sympathies lie as far as those things are concerned, and that's well known. I'm not just saying that; that's well known. So it's like, but so that's so petty.
It's very petty. It's very
you know,
childish.
yeah. I mean,
And
imagine.
very wrong, because she was. We've all been born into Britain, like we were born here. You know, she was born here. We said, was it 315 years we've been part of the union? And then I read somewhere yesterday somebody had put, it was 400 and something years we've all been part of the union. Anyway, it's a long, long time. And for somebody just to come out of however old she is, I think she's a year older than me, 51. So for someone to actually come out and say, you know, oh, no, we don't want to be part of that anymore, you know. Well, sorry, but you can't just come in and change history like that for everybody, you know, just because you don't like it. You're a minority. And, you know.
Yes.
Thank you, Sandra.
That's right. Adam I don't want to get you started on this particular one, but Adam asks, what's your opinion on the Scotland Greater Manchester?
Wow. You know, I'm delighted that the guy, you know, he stood up for everybody as well, you know, like for how we're all feeling. I mean, I've got a 19-year-old son in Buxton in Derbyshire, and I have to visit him every 2, 3, 4 weeks at the most. So I'm up and down the road constantly every month, and have been for 6 years. So, you know, for somebody just to come and tell me that I can't do that, I'm afraid is not on. For his mental health as well as mine, you know. So, and also, you know, we've seen what's been in the news about, is it Dundee that have got more cases? Was it Dundee, Alistair? Yeah.
I'm not sure offhand.
I think it was Dundee.
Could well be, yeah.
So, you know, like, and also with the football, obviously, in London.
Well, that's definitely,
you know, it's a little bit silly, isn't it? And the police don't want to be bothered. They need to be going to find the murderers, the rapists, the drug sellers. Not somebody going to see the son.
Well, exactly.
Well, there's no border anyway, so
yeah. And the police have been quite clear, and in the article that we've put up on the website last night, quoted the Assistant Chief Constable in Scotland saying that they're not going to be doing any stopping or patrolling of the border, basically. And I think it's because they know, or they suspect, that her edicts have no legal standing anyway. Yes, and so they're not wanting to get involved with this. But what it does do, it is great political traction for her, because it's like, look at me, I'm laying down the law, telling you English you can't come to Scotland, telling people in Scotland they can't go down to Manchester. You know, it gives a great power, and it's about conveying that. Conveying that power trip, basically, and then establishing the fact that she can get off with that, and that she can make these edicts to the point where a border will come to exist in people's imagination, if not in actual practical reality. As a consequence of the words that come out of her mouth, she's created the imagination in people's minds that there is a border, that they've got to be careful. Can I go to England? You know. Yeah,
and she's doing it actually, Alistair, with the referendum as well. She's like, it's all talk about the referendum. Oh, are Scots in England going to be allowed to vote in the referendum? What referendum? We don't want a referendum. We've already voted that, and it came through again in the recent election. Why are we talking about Scots voting in a referendum elsewhere in the country when there isn't a referendum planned?
Yes. Good point. And in fact, Michael Gove, I think it was this morning on BBC News, said that he can't see a situation where there would be another referendum up to 2024, which is the next general election, British general election. However, we're certainly not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to use that time in order to promote our point of view, in order to promote all the good things about the United Kingdom. And if during this time as well, the British government can really push the British love, you know, share the love, spread the love, throughout the United Kingdom, not just into Scotland, but to strengthen the hearts and minds and the sinews that connect us, then there's huge potential there to actually, especially with Brexit and all that sort of things, there's huge potential to move in a very positive direction. That, of course, always needs inspired leadership. A message there coming in from Ronald, who says, "Thank you, Kathleen, for sharing your story and sharing your enthusiasm with
it's so
us."
lovely, thank you. I met Ronald and Sandra at the Glasgow 1st of May counter-protest. And I've met them since for a coffee, and they're just lovely people. And that's what we need. We need to all get together. And, you know, if I can do this, everyone can do this. So
good. Excellent. Well, that's fantastic. That's 20 minutes have just shot by, Kathleen. So
thank you.
Great to have you. And I second that comment there from Ronnie. Thank you for your enthusiasm.
Okay.
Because
I'll come back on again, Alistair, because I have got lots of notes here.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
Like that I wrote last night to talk to you about, but obviously it's gone already. So
good. Well, there'll certainly be a next time, because we'll have you on again.
Get everybody on. Let's get talking about this.
Exactly. Let's get everybody talking about it. So, Kathleen, I'll say goodbye just now, and thanks very much. Take care.
Peace out. Bye.
Bye now. Fantastic. That's Catherine Rainey, great AFFG activist, just sharing her enthusiasm with us there and giving us quite a bit to think about. So thank you very much for that, Catherine. If any of you watching would like to be on, if you've got a story to tell us, then please do just contact us, and it may be possible that we can rig up the technology and connect with you as well. So please do, if you've any ideas to come on, or anybody you know who'd like to come on, please do come on. Now, also remember, please, folks, that these broadcasts are also available in podcasts. What we do is we take the audio from it and we put it up on our podcast page, and so you can get this broadcast in a podcast, and if we'll put up the link to the podcast page for this, and all the Good Morning UK Have Your Says are also all available in audio format, and we have a great person who does that specifically for us, and thank you to our podcast person. And indeed, thank you to the entire team who are behind everything that we do, including this Facebook page, because it's not just me here, there's folk monitoring the comments and engaging as well with you. So thank you to the whole team who are behind us here on Facebook, and also Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and video and graphic design and political outreach, and now TikTok.com. So please, if you're on TikTok, it's not everybody's bag, I totally get that, but if you are on TikTok, then that is our address. Note it's kk.com, tiktok.com / and it's got the @ in it, which is unusual for a URL. tiktok.com / @UK a force for good. And we've got 500 already, and we're really going to develop TikTok as a powerful unionist platform which reaches a younger demographic. It's a bit quirky, it's just very short videos, but we've got enough of it, and we've got the colour, and we've got the ability to really pull it off, and we're looking forward to taking TikTok through the next 6 months. So if you're on that, please do give us a follow on there, because it's a fun site, and I haven't started dancing on it yet. I can't imagine that I'm going to be doing that, but I'm doing other things on there as far as words of wisdom are concerned. And we'll do a wee TikTok video this afternoon. What should I talk about? I think I'll probably talk about the unfortunate fact that Scotland is now out of the Euros, but England and Wales are still in. So they're representing Britain, so they've got to do or die, 'cause Scotland can't do it, 'cause we didn't qualify. To paraphrase Andy Cameron and the great song We're on the March with Ali's army. So best of luck to England and Wales in their next events, and let's hope that they can keep the British end up and maybe even bring something home. Here we go, We're on the March with Ali's Army. That's a fantastic song. It really is. I was listening to it last night and just, that's amazing. It's amazing. It's right up there with, you know, Beethoven. Did he write songs? I'm not sure. But it's musically, it's just brilliant. And it's so, there's something about the melody which is just so unforgettable. Oh, brilliant. Sandra's already following on TikTok. Fantastic. Adam says, thanks for making me top fan on Facebook, by the way. Don't mention it, Adam. Don't mention it. But I'm glad you're pleased. Fantastic. Now, folks, also, please do get a purchase of the wee book if you can. We sell several of these every week. It's a bestseller. And, you know, when I say these keep us going, I'm not actually joking. You know, they do keep us going. They're only a £5. Postage is included within the United Kingdom. So if you've not got one, it's a really good educational read. And you can read it in an hour or so. And it's very colourful. And coming up as well will be this summer will be our 36-page magazine on policy, what the British government can do between now and the general election to keep the United Kingdom together and to forge the British bonds. Okay, and for that we do need union supporters. We do need people who are helping us monthly with anything from £5 a month upwards. We're trying to find 50 new union supporters. We'll put the link up there. Please do consider becoming one of them for as little as £1.15 a week, which works out over 52 weeks as £5 a month. And you'll get this badge free of charge if you request it. And you'll also get a subscription to our magazine Union Heart, and you'll also get a free copy of our 36-page magazine if you request it as well. So we really do need you guys to help with supporting us monthly or buying our merchandise. We've got a wide range of material there, including t-shirts with some good slogans on our Teespring store as well. And merchandise really does help. And it's a great way of wearing your heart on your sleeve. Quite literally wearing your heart or your heart on your sleeve. So thank you so much to everybody who is part of this and who is helping in their various ways. We really do appreciate you. Folks, it's now just after the bottom of the hour, so it's time for us to finish our broadcast. Thank you so much to everybody who engaged today. We had good engagement, and thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you especially to our guest, Catherine. So folks, it just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the Queen. See you next week.